All right, we're back and getting into some climate news here. Take a look at one of our lovely t-shirts or sweatshirt combinations here at teespring.com. Link can be found in the description here. NOAA, 12-month precipitation, third month in a row, hits an all-time high. Check this out. Heavy rainfall during the month of June added to another record-breaking 12 months of precipitation. Now, mind you, this has been the wettest 12 months the last 3 months. So basically starting back from October of 2018, or actually further than that. So we have seen, yeah, of course, 12-year period. But from April, May, and June, we have all hit all-time record highs. June precipitation total for the lower 48 was 3.3 inches above average. Ranked the upper third of the 125-year period for record. For the year-to-date, July 9th, the precipitation total was 19.5, and that is 3.74 inches above average, and the wettest such period in the 125-year record. Previous all-time 12-month record was 37.72 inches, occurred from June through May of 19. Prior record, of course, was the 12-month record of May of 18 through April of 19. And this previous June record was 35.11 inches, and that was broken from July of 82 through 83. Above to much above average precipitation was observed from the deep south through the Mississippi and Ohio valleys and along much of the East Coast. Kentucky ranked third wettest, Ohio was the fifth wettest, and Tennessee, believe it or not, ranked 8th wettest for June. Flooding persisted along many of the major river systems and their tributaries across the central U.S., including the central and lower Mississippi River, the Missouri River, as well as the Illinois River. Again, this is confirming what we've been talking about when it comes to increased precipitation. It's now a constant. If we have all-time record highs of the 12 wettest months and we keep breaking it each month, what's that tell you? When was the last time we broke 3 all-time high records back to back to back like that? Each month, we kept breaking the last month's record. And I read that wrong here at the beginning. So, I mean, only at 0.37 above average, ranked in the upper third of the 125-year period of record. For the year-to-date, July 9th, precipitation was at 19.5. That's right now 3.7 inches above average. So July is already shaping out to be another month of possibly record precipitation. And in the map here, in the greens mostly, we will continue to see rain in this region. Especially right here, guys. We're going to start to see it pick up here in Louisiana, not just from this storm either. I'll go over that in the GFS outlook. But there is a lots of moisture to come through this region here in the next 16 days on our forecast as well to watch. So I don't see any let up in this area that we have from Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, parts of eastern Kansas and eastern Nebraska, all the way across the heartland through Ohio, Pennsylvania, into the northeast of New York as well. South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi as well. And that pattern, unfortunately, we might get a little bit of a break, but not too much. And I'll go over that later as well in our forecast for our outlook. And here's an article from worldgrain.com. Now, this is old, from April 2019. But there's some very important things that are in this article here. And this website, as you can see, dedicates itself to farming, grain, all that stuff. All the farming information you want to know in this website. Okay? They want to announce on April World weather continues to be chaotic and apparently more volatile than decades ago. It is widely discussed and complained about frequently and often totally misunderstood. What it's referring to is the kingpin of weather on this planet is the sun, and no ocean or atmospheric pattern exists without the power of the sun influencing it. One of the discoveries in modern history has been that the sun is not a constant burner, and that there are periods in which the sun produces great heat energy and times when it produces less radiant energy. There is evidence that the sun has been producing less energy since the 1980s, and we may be entering a very rare long-term solar minimum. World Weather Incorporated believes this change will add more volatility to world weather. They kind of go into the history of sunspots and solar cycles and talk about how they've been observing this for over 400 years now. And it raises a question, will Earth cool down? Now, they're only acknowledging the upcoming solar minimum. They do mention the moderate minimum. They were talking about how that was, they actually admit in this article that the moderate minimum was long enough to bring down Earth temperatures so that several areas around the world reported colder winters and colder summers. The unfortunate part of the debt is that there was no official weather reporting station network back in those times, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, imagine that. We had to rely on science for this information, guys. Remember that. Had to rely on science. And the science that they used to get that information back then is the same science they use to get it now. And guess what? It all correlates and it matches. So the science to this point is precise when it comes to measuring the stuff from ice cores, tree rings, ocean sediment. Continues to talk about the atmosphere. I'm very proud of this article. Many reasons. I'll get into that here in a minute. The one thing we believe with confidence is that the stratosphere will continue to cool down, and since this is part of the atmosphere is immediately above the troposphere, cooling eventually will reach some of the higher altitudes of the troposphere. Once it cools sufficiently high up in our part of our atmosphere, strong thunderstorms and very deep mid-latitude storms will be able to tap into that cooler air, resulting into more episodes of intensive rain, flooding, and extreme temperatures, both hot and cold. Pretty much the science of these solar minimums and grand solar minimums. The intensive rain, they're speaking of the weaker magnetic fields from these solar minimums, allowing more cosmic rays to create these intensive rains. Some scientists believe this phenomenon has already begun. That explains some of the wild weather that has been occurring around the world. We have fully loaded atmosphere full of warm, moist air, and the only thing that is needed to produce some really extreme weather is sustainable cold air aloft to intensify storms more than we are used to seeing. Bottom part of this paragraph. Oh, wait, let me continue actually. Any one of these phenomena could occur at any time, and that raises potential for earlier than usual autumn freezes and later than usual spring freezes. All of these weather impacts will have a big influence on agriculture, which may change productivity, but at the very least will give more incentive for further development in crop genetics so that productivity will be less impacted by the possible coming weather extremes. Yeah, wishful thinking there, guys. I don't think a lot of people are comfortable with GMOs in the first place. And I get it that might be the only source of food that we have in a potential food crisis that's upcoming. But this article points out things that we talk about that's going to happen in a grand solar minimum. It also speaks on solar minimums. It also speaks about the cycles. Talks about sunspots. So this article basically in April was telling all farmers, and of course I just found it today and it's July 10th. So almost 3 months ago, this was a warning. And I didn't see it talked about anywhere. Maybe it was talked about and I just didn't catch it. But guys, wow, what a red flag that these people are throwing up. And I'll tell you something, it takes a lot of courage to go against mainstream media. You could risk losing your website. I'm sure somehow you'll get attacked by the global warmists. These guys were saying it back in April. Hey, the sun is doing this. The sun is going to continue to change our climate. and it's going to affect our crops. You have to, unfortunately, read between the lines, but the number one thing I want to mention about this article here at worldgrain.com is that it talks about the sun changing the climate and does not mention anything about man's contributions to climate change. And that was really the most important part of this agriculture article. These people, the farmers, they need straight answers. They need to know what's happening. They need to be able to prepare for what's happening. And this article was probably buried, and probably a lot of farmers didn't see this. But my question is, why are we waiting so late for this message to get out? And here's where it gets a little gloom and doom, I guess. Maybe the powers that be want to control the food. So the longer that you're left in the dark about what's coming, the easier it is for the powers that be to control the food. It started when the owner of Amazon bought out one of the largest organic food companies, Whole Foods. The richest of the rich are going to control the prices of our food to make profit. People all around the world that want to cash in on this. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. And this is not really GSM related, but this kind of goes with our storm that we got coming up. And this is how weather affects not only our climate, but our economy as well, not just in the crops, but we're talking about U.S. oil companies. Now, this article is reading off, these folks are doing the right thing. They are shutting down several refineries, platforms. Prices did go up today. The withdrawals helped push the U.S. oil futures up 4.5% to $60.43 a barrel on Wednesday, and lifted gasoline futures more than 4% as well. Now, that's the highest price since late May, which was right around Memorial Day weekend. I believe we almost hit the $3 a gallon gas in many parts of the United States. Gulf of Mexico produces 17% of U.S. crude oil and 5% of natural gas. The potential hurricane to be named Barry approached Louisiana. Governor John Bel Edwards on Wednesday declared a state of emergency, warning that up to 15 inches of rain could fall on parts of the Gulf Coast state. New Orleans was under a flash flood warning after receiving about 8 inches of rain early in the day. So this storm hasn't even hit yet. This is the problem I have with the weather, that channel on cable that shows you weather. This is my problem with their forecast on only 5 to 8 inches of rain in the next 7 days. We've already had 8 inches of rain in New Orleans today. And technically, this storm is still just a depression right now. It's not even organized. And we'll have a better idea, too, on the next update at 11 o'clock as far as the track. Me personally, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing shift to the east a little bit. Talking about more rainfall and all these companies shutting it down. And, you know, trust me, guys, there's a point why I'm bringing this up. I'm not going to get right to it right now. But so here we have the closings of these oil platforms. All right. And then we have this article here talking about oil prices rising. So we have a storm that's heading this way by this weekend. Refineries are shut. It's all over the news now. Oil's going up. Basically, I'm bringing this part up to warn you folks that I think this is going to be a little bit higher than normal gas hike. And the only reason why I'm going to say that, and I really have to jump out of bounds here, because this story was actually saved for the end of the weather report. But as I was going through this, I thought to myself, okay, this has to be mentioned in the same order with these other two oil articles. So here's AccuWeather.com, and look what they're doing right off the rip. Hurricane Harvey's impact on the oil and gas industry hasn't been forgotten. This article is riddled with Hurricane Harvey stats and the importance of the petroleum, the gas, the natural gas, the oil, the platforms, what it means for the East Coast. I mean, this article turns into an oil and gas topic. So to me, we've got warnings from regular newspaper articles about prices going up. We already know they've shut down refineries. And then you got AccuWeather, who's giving you a line of this, article here, just shoving all this information down your throat. And yeah, maybe they are doing us a service. They're warning us, without saying it, I guess. But when they report and say this could be a problem, and you see all the other reports talking about it in the non-weather issue of the oil price rise, on top of the situation that we're having in Iran, folks, I talked about this in late winter, early spring. Prices went up for a little bit on gas. They fell back down. National average, I think, is somewhere around $2.69. We are in peak season right now, or beginning of peak season of hurricane season. So this is where we need to keep our eyes on the cost of fuel for this time. But it also makes you think about what's going to happen to ethanol in the future as well. When we see the crop reports in January of 2020 on how we finished for the year 2019. So if next year's Corn Belt gets affected like this year and worse, what are we going to be paying for fuel this time next year? And I'm not trying to be the scaremonger here, but I'm just trying to raise awareness. There's so many articles in here that are related to oil price rise in so many different sections of the news today. It's ridiculous. From political with Iran, from the storm here, and of course the markets. Always saying how, well, because these refineries got shut down, we're going to just expect the high prices. Get it while you can, I guess, oil industry. And I'll tell you, that's another thing that's going to cripple the industry as well if prices continue to go up. Here we're talking about we need to continue to burn coal and natural gas. And I'm telling you, with the rise in oil and everything else around it, that may be true. I know a lot of states want to, like our state here in New York, they want to ban natural gas and coal and try to make it off of solar, wind, and hydro and nuclear. Now, I'm impressed that nuclear was actually included with this aggressive climate bill that we signed here in New York. It's not yet in effect, but they're working on it. So many factors to think about, really, guys, and I apologize. I know my head is spinning right now. So just take it in one step at a time. We'll leave the links here on our website. And before I go into our weather report tonight, I want to make real quick that okay, yeah. So before I go into our weather, let's go over to our crop report. And here we have, finally, July 7th, 2019, we have suitable field work for pretty much the entire United States. This is the first farm report that has come out all year long. Thank you, Waylon. He's excited about this too. But hold on to your hats, folks. The fact that we're only seeing 4 to 5 days worth of field work in the first week of July is worse than I thought. This is truly the first time that we are seeing in 90% of the states at least 4.5 days worth of suitable field work. It's July 7th. Well, according to this report, July 7th. We're actually July 10th. They've changed it up a little bit too, as far as they're not reporting the planted anymore because we are past that. That was supposed to happen during our, bear with me folks, here this good old crop report likes to spin things, you know how they spin it. All right, so now we're not even looking at planted, we're just looking at what's emerged from the ground. And it says here that 18 states planted 92% of last year's corn acreage. We all know that number could change in August. Colorado, you're 100% emerged. At this time last year, you're also 100%. Now, what I really want to see is actual pictures here. 100% emerged can just mean that they're growing. It doesn't mean that they are at the appropriate height or where they should be at that part. You guys also got to remember this. You got less solar activity, more cloud nucleation, more cloud coverage, less light to these crops. It's going to make these crops puny as well. I mean, some of these corn that I see right now in the supermarkets are ridiculous. Maybe 2/3 of the size of usual corn. So I'll be curious to see what it looks like towards the end of the summer, early fall as well. But soybeans situation, most of the corn is emerging from the fields across the United States, even in Ohio at 92%. But again, folks, that just means it's coming out of the ground. We don't know what's knee high and waist high at this point. All we can rely on is pictures from social media. Soybeans, Ohio, still struggling. 88% has emerged, okay, compared to 100% last year this time. Only up 7% from last week's mark as well. But right now, it looks like Ohio is the only state that is struggling with their soybean crops at this time. So we will continue to monitor these crop reports as they continue to come out. We also know that wheat planting could be delayed as well from the delayed planting in the Corn Belt, soybeans, and everything else. So lots to keep up with for the rest of the growth season and into fall and into this winter. Weather is continuing to show its intensity. Right when you think you're getting a break, it flexes its muscle again. Guys, stick around. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.